Okay, we're in 5.2, and I want to talk about the area of triangles. So you're given a formula for the area of triangles, and that is that you do your base times your height. Area equals base times height, and then you divide that by half when you're doing triangles. I like that they show this one with a graph because somehow it just makes it easier to look at all the squares. You kind of see what you're doing. So if you have the base and you say this whole length of base going up this much, then it's technically going to give you all of this, the green and the stuff that I'm coloring gray. It's going to give you all of this, but that's way more than you need. And the formula tells us that we're going to divide it by half, and that will give us just the green part. And the fun thing about this is you can kind of look at this whole square and you can see, okay, well, I've got all of those half squares, just as many as are right there, and then I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 whole squares, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 whole squares, and then I've got sort of a, I don't know, more than 3/4 something. That one kind of corresponds. This one corresponds. This one corresponds. Little one corresponds to the other. You can just kind of see a picture of what you actually did there. You really did get double what you needed. So dividing it by half makes sense. And not like everyone is maybe as easy to see that, and you're not always going to have them on a graph, but it just helps to visualize that when you did base times height, you found a square. That is our formula for base, or length times width, but it's the same idea. You found all of that. For a triangle, you always divide half. So, I don't know, I just wanted to show you that picture in case no one has shown you that. But anyway, let's just do a few triangle problems here on pages 182, or I may go over onto 183 as well. Okay, let's do number 3. Okay, they've got a, okay, this one's units are in miles. Sorry. So we've got a 5-mile base, and this is right angle, and a 12-mile height. So we're going to do our formula for a triangle. Area equals base times height. So area equals 5 times 12, and we know that is 60. So again, we're finding area, so we did 5 mile times 12 mile. This is a good example of why we say miles squared. So if you did 5 miles times 12 miles, you think about it, the 5's getting times to the 12, and a mile is getting mile times mile makes mile squared. It's an interesting way to think about why you do it. Or you can write it like this. You can write square miles, either way. So that's the answer to number 3. Okay, we're going to do number 4. So I'm not going to draw this one, but we're just going to look and remember our formula. This one maybe isn't as easy for you to shade out all of what you're finding there, that base times that height, but we know that to be true about triangles. We know that's our formula, so just do the work. Base times height, and your height in this one, it's not drawn inside, but the height is the base to the highest point, and it's a perpendicular line, so it's not a line going like, that. If you had that triangle, this wouldn't be any sort of height, this wouldn't be any sort of height. It's always that straight up line that makes a perpendicular, a perpendicular line that means it makes a right angle. So, we could have done number 2. Let's do number 2 real quick. 24 yards times 10 yards. So that's base times height divided by 2. Yikes! I messed up on number 3. I am so sorry. I forgot to divide it by 2. You probably saw that. So divided by 2, it would have been 30 miles squared. I'm just messing up right and left. It's too early. Okay. Okay. Let's do number 2. 24 times 10. I just finished telling you about that formula, and then there I go. Okay, area equals base times height times 1/2, or you can think of it as base times height divided by 2. Okay, area equals, base is 24, height is 10, divided by 2. Okay, so 24 times 10 is 240, divided by 2 is going to be, well, 24 divided by 2 is 12, so 120. And if you're not comfortable doing that in your head, just write it out. Always good to do a long way if you need to. So the units that I need to write on that, what were my units? For number 2, it was yards. Yard times yard, yard squared. Okay, so 120 square yards. That's kind of a weird circle. All right, now we're hopping over to number 4. I'm not going to draw that one either, but it's right here. So we have base times height divided by 2. Don't forget that divided by 2 like I did. Okay, area equals base times height divided by 2, or times 1/2, which when you do something times 1/2, you're timesing it by 1, so there's like an invisible 1, and you're multiplying the bottom by half, so, you know, the base times the height was already over 1, if that makes sense. I think we've talked about, so I just kind of combined them by writing it like that. So I didn't even need to write that one. Once I combine them, it's base times height over 2. That's how multiplication works. You just multiply them all. Anyway, okay, so area equals, base was 7, and then height was 9 inches. These are both in the same units. That's a good thing to check. If they gave you 1 in yards and 1 in inches, you'd need to get them the same. They gave them the same, they're both in the same units. So 7 times 9 divided by 2. Okay, 7 times 9, 63, divided by 2. So we're going to need an uneven answer right here. So 60 divided by 2 would be 30, and that leaves 3. We've got to divide that by 2. That's 1.5. So 31.5 inches squared would be the answer, but I'm going to do that math over here to the side too. 63 divided by 2, so 3 times 2 is 6, and then that leaves a 3 left over. Okay, 1 times 2 is 2, so 1 left over with the 10 right there. Keep that decimal going up, and then, yeah, 5 times 2 is 10, so that it comes out even when we do the math. So 31.5 inches squared. Let's do one of these that's in the box. Let's do number 11. Okay, so they told us that over here they're telling us that each unit means 2. So let's go ahead and just with my pencil, I'm going to go ahead and label this. So that's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. 10 for our base. And then our height. So remember, our height is not just a line on the triangle. It is the height that goes from the base and draws a perpendicular line to the highest vertex. There's this right here, the altitude is what that is called. It's the height of a triangle, also called its altitude, is the length of the line, this line, from the top vertex perpendicular to the base. So it has to form a right angle. Anyway, good to remember that terminology if they ask you what's another name for the height. It's altitude. Okay, like you hear people talking about mountains and you're at such and such an altitude. And that looks kind of like a mountain, so that's not too hard to remember. Okay, so let's count that up. So it's from here to there. 2, 4, 6, 8. So the height, or the altitude, is 8. And they just say units. So that's units, and that's units. So that's what we're going to use, is units squared once we get our answer. Okay, so number 11. Area of a triangle is base times height over 2, or times 1/2, whichever way you want to look at it. So I'm going to step down and fill in. The base is 10, the height is 8, and write that divided by 2. All right, now I'm going to work out the top. 10 times 8 is 80, divided by 2, okay? That's simple enough. I'm just going to step over here. 80 divided by 2 is 40. So the area equals 40, and what did we say? It was units. They didn't give us the exact, but we know it's units squared, whatever those would have been. If it was miles, if we were talking about some sort of a mountain, or if it was inches and we're just talking about a piece of pizza. That would be a really nice slice of pizza if it had a height of 8. Okay, let's do number 12. This is one of those triangles where the height is not as easy to find. Like this one, its height is like, that's easy to see. The perpendicular line that goes to the highest vertex. Well, this one, you've got to line it up with the base and find the highest point. So it's not here, you know, it's not like you can just draw to that. You have to draw to the highest vertex. The vertex is that little angle. So we step outside of it, draw it from the base and up. So let me get my pencil. But they did make it simple for us in that each of these is just 1. So that's 1, 2. So it's 2 for your height. There, down to there. And then your base starts right here and goes to there. So we got to count that up. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9, and unit is what we're working with. So we're going to do, let me write number 12 right here. So area equals base times height over 2. So I'm going to step down. Area equals the base we found to be 9 units, and the height we found to be 2 units. So 9 times 2 is 18. Oh, I'm getting ahead of myself. Okay. Write the 2. Now we'll do that. 9 times 2 is 18 over 2, if I can fit that on there. And 18 over 2, that just means 18 divided by 2. And we know that is 9. So over here to the side, I'll write my answer clearly. Area equals 9 units squared. Guess I'll do it like that now, because okay, so I'm going to hold this up. I didn't do all of the problems, but these are your answers for 3, 2, 4, 11, and 12.